Your views of E3 continues. Moving on from talking about the console specifically to moving on to one of the console manufacturers. Moving on to Sony. The conference itself, there was not that much to be expected, really. There was some hope that there was going to be some talk around things like Last of Us 2. Probably going to be there next year, most likely. Probably going to be there next year, so that's really it. It certainly seemed a lot less interesting because they didn't have any of those very big guns there. They had a couple. They had the new Uncharted ones. Otherwise, most of it was just trailers. They spent basically, it was only about half an hour long, 45 minutes long. It was absolutely tiny. And they actually stayed their hand. There were things that were released outside of the event that were right in Sony's sort of usual bracket, but I think because of the backlashes that kept on happening with them sort of going on meanders, talking about technical things and things like that, like 2 years ago, them spending most of the time talking about PlayStation TV, they stayed their hand and didn't talk about it at all. Although the one thing that they did spend a lot of time trying to push was VR. The one thing they have above all of the other consoles, VR. It is basically the entry-level console for VR. Apart from that, there wasn't really that much to talk about more than anything else. For the stuff that they announced, or it's less announced, more the stuff they showed off, or showed a trailer for, in their actual conference, they first started out with Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. The Lost Legacy is a standalone expansion, kind of like in the same vein as Far Cry Blood Dragon, kind of in the same vein as that. It's it's basically something that was made in the same engine, made using the same stuff, but it's basically a new game. It's just they spent all of the money making the Uncharted of the 4s. They're using what materials they have to crank out a couple of extra games following Chloe Fraser or Black. Chloe Black? I can't remember. Then came a trailer for and a little brief talk about Horizon Zero Dawn: The Frozen Wilds. DLC for the Horizon Zero Dawn. It's blue. It's wintry. That's basically it. Then came another sort of gameplay trailery thing for Days Gone. Which is... Days Gone, well, I've always been kind of interested at Days Gone because it's a horde zombie game. And horde games are few and far between these days. They used to be a big thing. Back in the days of the Left 4 Deads, but then they kind of dropped the horde nature and kept the 4-player co-op. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. The one standout thing that everyone seems to have latched onto is the zombie barbed wire bear. I'm not going to deny that saying zombie barbed wire bear does not just it's not vocalizing awesome. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not entirely sure of how much of an impact that sort of style of thing is going to have. It comes out early 2018, so probably spring, probably summer. I'm guessing more summer. When they say early, they mean kinda early. Then came one that's cross-platform, Monster Hunter Worlds, coming out in 2018. It's a 4-player. Well, yeah, it's a 4-player. The 4-player co-op thing. It's a Monster Hunter game. You can play with 4 players or not. It's coming out for both PS4 and the Xbox, and PC later. For the Xbox and the PS4, it's coming out in early 2018, and for PC it just says at some point afterwards. So at some point it is going to be coming to PC. Not even specifying a year. Capcom has a trouble with actually releasing their shit. Not a buggy pile of crap on for PC. yeah, I'm not going to deny that Capcom have huge issues with releasing stuff on PCs, because their shit is usually broken as fuck when they release it on PCs, and it usually gets patched to fuckery, or not at all. Yeah, it's a Monster Hunter game, not much else to say above that. A lot of the stuff that they have are either sequels, kind of sequels, even the stuff they didn't really release or talk about, it's kind of sequel-y sort of things. So there's not really that much to talk about. It looks like another Monster Hunter game. I've always been very fascinated with Monster Hunter games, and with it coming to PC, maybe the time for me to get involved. Then came the almost brilliant news that Shadow of the Colossus is getting a HD redo. It looks literally a HD redo. Some of the set pieces, things like that, were literally exactly the same. But Shadow of the Colossus is basically one of the most beautiful games. Ico make some of the most beautiful games ever created. Even the stuff that's on the PS2 still looks stunning. And now they're gonna be doing the HD redo for the new consoles. I am... The only date I found for it is 2018. So it's coming out for 2018 at some point. So it's probably going to be more than a year away, most likely. But still, Shadow of the Colossus is still one of the most beautiful games. Then, in the conference, came another sequel, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. It's another Marvel vs. Capcom beat-em-up thing. I saw some of the new characters they're going to be introducing to it. Some of the other ones that are going to be coming to it are the original Dante, Gamora from Marvel. There were 6 of them, now I can't bloody remember what they are. Either way, it's a Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite game. The story, or at least a demo of the story, is available now, with the game coming out in September. So, it's September 19th. It looks like I put 199, so I certainly hope it's the 19th, otherwise my writing is still bleeding terrible. Then came a trailer for Call of Duty World War II, specifically the multiplayer trailer, because Sony has a deal with them being the king masters of consoles at the moment, the same way the 360 was, in a way to make maximum amount of cash from DLC. They signed the deals with them, saying, you get all the DLC first, and that was basically it. It was basically going, look, Call of Duty World War II, coming out at this point. Ooh, moving on. Then came along to the one thing that Sony has above everything else, VR, a string of VR trailers. Some of them very fascinating. We have Skyrim VR. Fucking hell, the game that refuses to die. Good bleeding Christ. Skyrim, the game that came out 6-7 years ago now. God, Jesus Christ. Half a decade ago now. And they're still releasing versions of it. I'm not entirely sure if I should be impressed or extremely disappointed. Although, the one thing that came about with the Skyrim VR thing, it's coming out in November. Going by the reports and stuff that I have, and also going by some of the reports that I have read, it has had mixed reviews, in the sense of it seems a bit early in its development, and hence the reason why I was quite surprised to hear that it's supposed to be coming out in November. Well, it's to spoil some things, the Bethesda one, but I'm hardly going to spoil anything. They have stated that they have. They were also talking about the report that I read. They were talking about the Fallout 4 VR. Saying that both of them still are a bit weird, in the sense that Fallout 4 VR seems a lot more fleshed out. Being able to manipulate things, move back the things with the joysticks means that things can be slightly more fun, but it still needs polish. And when they were talking about Skyrim VR, they were basically saying that it just wasn't finished at all. It just didn't feel at all finished. And one thing he was saying about it as well was that the one issue that Skyrim had is that there was a lot of area with nothing in it, with just trees and mountains and bugger all in it. And one thing he was saying is that seeing it in VR, in first person, basically as person would see, it actually feels really empty. It actually does feel like there is nothing there. So, it's advertising Skyrim VR, but it's getting to a point now where Skyrim is now starting to age, and doing flat out re-releases now may not necessarily make the game age any better. So that is basically sort of the words of warning that I have been hearing through the vines, the internet, and the critical reviews and all of the various things, and the people who are actually at the event. That basically I've been hearing mixed things about Skyrim VR from an actual gameplay standpoint, which is interesting. I can't say it for sure. Like I said, it's reports that I have read and I have seen. So take that as is. It's from the stuff I've seen. It's been mixed, not bad, mixed. Then the next one they moved on to was Starchild, which has no release date. It seems interesting, but has no release date. So Buggery McBuggery of Buggerington knows when the bloody thing's going to come out. Then came along The Inpatient, which seems very intriguing. It's a horror game. It's coming out in 2017. That was basically it. He said 2017. I'm going to guess around Halloween. Ooh, horror game coming out near Halloween. Hardly going to be that much of a push. It seemed a lot like the, what was it, Wilson's Heart that came out a couple of weeks back, a little while back. It seems kind of like that, but not as gimmicky. And then came the medal with Final Fantasy Fishing Edition. Final Fantasy 15 Monster in the Deep. Basically, Final Fantasy 15 VR fishing. Fucking really? I know Final Fantasy has a knack of just putting out shit sometimes. But okay. Then came Bravo Team for the VR. It's a first-person shooter experience thing. Release date, fuck knows. It's got co-op as well. But generally, fuck knows when it'll come out. Then came Moss, a game from Supermassive, which is very Supermassive V, if that's a word. It's a mouse VR platformer thing, controller thing. It's the perspective of VR that I don't really understand. If it's like God Control things like that, then that'll be alright. Otherwise, it might be like a platformer where you control the mouse via thing. For the things I've read, I'm kind of just going, does that sound right? But people were entranced by the magic of the entire thing. Apparently it looks really nice. It's a Supermassive game, so apparently it looks really nice, feels very nice, and so then came God of War. It's interesting to say the least. The whole God of War thing, this new God of War version has been very interesting. Mainly in the sense of it is, well, the biggest comparison point is that it is pulling off, it's basically basing its type on Norse mythology this time rather than Greek mythology. But there are a couple of things in the trailer which made it seem like a direct sequel. Like there was a couple of times he was sort of going around Greek pottery and Greek artifacts, which was like, is this a direct sequel? And there was actually part of a history of where did Kratos come from? Where did he just appear, sort of thing? And as the chronology of time puts the Norse after the Greeks, yeah, this could actually be a direct sequel to basically that entire chronology. Basically, they can still fit in more normal God of War games set in the Greek mythos, but it certainly seems to be a point of, and from the Greek stuff he ended up here. And that has been the most interesting thing about it. It's really steeping itself in sort of the Bifrost mythology, the sort of the Norse mythology of the whole thing. It looks great. It looks amazing. I love the whole Norse mythology stuff because it was kind of like the Greek mythology. It was the mythology where people stopped giving a shit. Are they gods? Yeah, they just fight and fuck. Yeah, so it seems very fun. It still looks amazing. Still has a lot of potential. It still looks amazing. I'll give it that. It still looks fantastic. Then came another trailer for Detroit Become Human. It was a trailer. It was very much trying to push the idea of your decisions matter and your decisions change the world. How? Fuck knows. What decisions will you actually be facing? Fuck knows. It's David Cage, so don't know really. Yeah, it's I like the idea because it's the idea of a android sentience. It's the idea of an android evolution sentience. It certainly had a different tone to last time. Last time the whole thing was, as a cop, your decisions matter. Whether you will survive or they will survive or anything like that. This one was a rebellion, a assured android rebellion, and what the fuck do they have in common? Well, the guy last time was an android. Perhaps you play on both sides. That'll be interesting. Go for a full noir thing. That was the one thing I wanted. Is that if this goes for a full, like LA noir style investigation thing for it, you will have me very interested because I quite liked that game. Everyone else didn't. It's kind of my little pleasure. I liked that game. Then came the obligatory mentions of Destiny 2. Don't care. Coming out September 6th. Sony has some exclusives like raids and ships and gear and cosmetics and all the other stuff. Not much to say on Destiny 2. It's Destiny 2. And then came Spider-Man. Spider-Man. It looks fucking awesome. The trailer made it look absolutely fantastic, but all the information that came out afterwards, with everyone talking to the Insomniac Games people, made everything a lot more fun. Because it is confirmed by them that it will have physics-based swinging, like in the very great Spider-Man 2. So it's got that. Yay. Does it have QTEs? Does it use first-person perspective? In chosen segments. So the first person is only going to be for set pieces, which is kind of disappointing, but also not unexpected. So, take that as you will. And it was also, in the same interviews, that was the mentioning that the PS4 Pro, at least this edition, is graphically, this one isn't going to be very powerful for parity between the original PS4 and the new PS4 Pro. It is going to be up-resed at 30. Not up-res to 30. It's going to be 30 frames base with an up-resed resolution. Which, yeah, okay. This was the point when I certainly realised that Sony doesn't give a shit about actual graphical power output via console things, and they really wanted to push VR more than most. The tech for getting out VR, the motion controls rather than graphical output. But that does not make a game bad. If your choices behind this game is changing just because I said the whole thing of it's not 4K native, you're a fucking moron. Because, well, there's potentially other things to kill the game over, and it still seems very, very, very good. But there are still some things that are a concern. QTEs are a bit of a concern, but in the positive column, it is going to be open world. It is going to have physics-based swinging. Yeah, it looks very, very fun. And the one little, it has to be something to do with the story that's going on with the thing, but right at the very, very, very end of the trailer, they had the brief shot of Miles Morales. If you're not up to date with the lore, Miles Morales is the person who became Spider-Man after Peter Parker. It's basically after Peter Parker died, retired, whatever the fuck, Miles Morales was the one that took over the helm as Spider-Man. So he is basically the Spider-Man in the lore to be after Parker. And he was in it. which was amazing. Ooh, interesting. It's made interesting, which might means that this game may end with Peter Parker dying, which is kind of good because some people don't know how to write Peter Parker, because Peter Parker at times is a bleeding moron. But also saying that, there are also other things that were released outside, or at least announcements that were made outside of the conference. The first one is one that's pretty easy to understand. It's Everybody's Golf. Coming from the PS4 on the 30th of August this year. Everybody Golf is it's a golfing game, but it hasn't. It's been several years since the previous iteration, and it had quite a big going in the PlayStation Home sort of experiment. We went on with that, the Second Life kind of thing. And it seems to be taking a few keys from that. It has the sociability, driving about, open world sort of aspect to it, which is very good. Probably the best comparison I have for it at the moment is probably something like Gmod Towers, but with less mini games, because it's a game about golf. The trailer was very upbeat and made me quite happy, so it has that going for it. Then came the latest version of GT Sport, or Gran Turismo, the latest Gran Turismo game coming out this year. The beta for it is available now. Not much to say on Gran Turismo, another one of those driving games I don't really spend much time going on, and it's also one of the franchises that is really fucking old. So it is one of the ones that, if you're interested, the beta for it is available now. You can apply for the beta today. And then jumping about a bit, there is Knack 2 coming out in September 5th. Considering the amount of push they had for it for the original console, going, look, we can do particle effects. Knack 2 is getting a rather low-key release this time, probably because it didn't sell that well, because it was a fucking tech demo. But it seems a lot more bombastic. It has a co-op mode, a actual co-op mode where you can play with another player who's blue, while your players will play one that's red, or whatever the fuck. So, yeah, Knack 2 at that point. Then comes a game that I think is more going for the Western release. I think it's already out in Japan. It's No Heroes Allowed VR, coming in the fall 2017. It's a tower defense kind of RTS type thing. It seemed to me it seemed relatively interesting. It's a VR tower defense thing where you could move things around and pick up and movie things, and yeah, it's that style of thing. It seems fun. It has that very O Japan style, sort of the very O Japan style of things for it. Yeah, not much else to really say about it, really. It seems like a nice game. And then came the most interesting thing, which I was very, very surprised about, and the thing that I was very, very surprised about that they didn't announce at the event, because this is right up Sony's alley, and that is the PlayLink system. The PlayLink system is it's kind of a device system. If you know of Jackbox, you've probably seen a bunch of YouTubers play it, where they use their phones as a device and they can draw things like Drawful and the one like Liar and other ones like that, where they use their phones as a device, play for that, but you can also have an audience as well that comes along. It's the Jackbox games, kind of things like that. And this basically seems like Sony's version, which makes things very interesting, because they have a selection of games coming out at the moment. One of the ones that seems to have picked a lot of attention for it is Hidden Agenda, which is also by Supermassive, which seems very, 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 very fascinating. It's a kind of, they took a lot of inspiration. It's kind of like Until Dawn, where you have a bunch of decisions to make, and you all decide where things to go, but one person is given a hidden agenda to do evil deeds. I'm guessing it's going to be evil deeds because you play as police officers and lawyers. So I'm guessing there's going to be that whole thing of trying to subvert the group into your evil ways. But yeah, this PlayLink system actually seems it seems really good. The Jackbox games have always been extremely fascinating in that sort of regard, where it has those sort of games for it. But it also kind of opens up the console to having games like that on the console, which is quite interesting. It was very much touted. Well, PlayLink does have a selection of games you can play on it as well as the games like Hidden Agenda, which makes it kind of interesting because it means, well, the best comparison, the way I saw it, was that the system looked like they were sort of playing the system and having the system, introducing the system in the same way that they did with the original iToy. Where you have, look, it's a peripheral thing you stick in. You have all of these different games you can have with the game that comes with it, but you can also have these other ones, like some of the Harry Potter mini games you can play the thing and yeah. So I was very much fascinated by it, and it seems that is the most fascinating thing that Sony had this time, and it was something they didn't have in the conferences, probably because they were paranoid about people bitching and whining for the fact that they were talking about other stuff besides actual games. The games that they had on offer were solid, but it was very short and was mostly trailers, so I'll crucify them for that instead. The PlayLink, it's by far the thing that probably deserves the most attention at the moment, is the PlayLink system, because that seems fascinating and brilliant. So Sony, please do advertise that more. That actually seems really good. If opening up to, he's going, yes, you were advertising your Xperia phones. I saw that. I noticed that. You're doing the same shit that fucking Xbox did last time, trying to sell off the Surface tablets. But I will forgive you because it seems like you can play this on any device as long as it's whatever the thing it uses, Android or whatever it is. You can use it on a device, because that's the thing that happens with Jackbox as well. You can play it on any device as long as it's a smartphone with a touchscreen. It's all right. It's currently extremely hot in here. My camera is yelling at me about it's overheating. I'm not surprised. I have to close everything to fucking do these recordings to have the best sound quality. Even then, I probably have to boost it because recording it this way is a lot easier than recording it that way. Oh, good Christ, it's warm here. My camera's yelling at me. At this point, and in the chronology of the playlist, I still have PC Gamer want to talk about, the Devolvers I want to talk about, and E3 overall. And Nintendo as well. Can't forget Nintendo. Nintendo actually had a good showing this year. So I've still got a bunch of ones to do. But it's currently extremely warm in here. I'm going to try and get these videos out quickly. So, that's it for now. And I will see you at some point later for more of the E3 coverage.